Welcome back to the channel, guys. Today we're going to break down one of my favorite fishing techniques of all time, and especially one of my favorite summertime fishing techniques, and that's the drop shot. We're going to talk about a few things you might believe about the drop shot that are essentially not true. Some things that I used to believe when I started fishing a drop shot, and I quickly learned there's many other ways to fish a drop shot than 6-pound test line, open hooks, and fishing 4-inch baits for smallmouth bass on some medium light rods. And that's what we're going to be doing today. We're going to have some fun with a drop shot, catching some fish offshore, and actually catching more fish than you would throwing some other techniques when the fishing gets tough in the summertime. So stay tuned. Let's get right into it. We're going to break down everything about this setup right here. So as I mentioned, the drop shot doesn't just have to be an ultra finesse technique. Granted, there are places that works when you're fishing for smallmouth. Sometimes you got to put the 6 or 8 pound test on there. You got the medium or medium light rod with the light drag, and you play those fish. You're fighting them on size 1 split shot drop shot hooks with some 4-inch baits, a Berkeley flatworm, whatever it might be. Depending on your fish, that's the way to go. But a lot of places that have largemouth bass exclusively, like the one we're on today, or even places that have spotted bass, like I've used this technique on Lake Hartwell before, this is the way to go. And I've done a rigging video on this already, completely breaking down how to set this thing up, and that'll be at the end of today's video if you want to check that out in detail. But we'll skim through that, and then we're going to go out on the water and really show you how to fish this thing. That's the important part. But what I have here, this is going to be the backbone of this entire deal here, and that is a power finesse spinning rod. So this is the Icon from Cashin, the spinning rod, and this is the 7'2" fast medium heavy. It's rated for an 1/8 of an ounce to 5/8 ounce lures, so it's got some meat behind this thing. It has a soft tip that you can feel everything, but it shuts off real fast, like 30% of the way down the rod, and has a lot of backbone. This is actually my dock skipping rod. I fish wacky rigs around docks with this. I fish Nico rigs up shallow in the springtime using this rod. In the summers, I put a drop shot on this, and I'll upscale my line. So I usually use 15-pound test braid to an 8-pound test fluorocarbon leader. I'll even go to 10 or 12-pound test fluorocarbon leader doing this technique, because you're going to be fishing in brush piles, in abrasive cover, in grass lines or the edges of grass. So if you have something with a little bit more abrasion resistance, the water we're fishing today is stained. Those fish really don't care. So they're not going to pay attention to what kind of line you have on there, how big it is. They're just going to bite if you put this bait in front of them, and probably get more bites than other people as well. Like I mentioned, what will happen is a lot of these people find these offshore fish, they're going to throw football jigs at them, they're going to throw 10-inch worms, they're going to throw big crankbaits at them, all this kind of stuff that's very big and bulky. And while they have to eat a lot in the summer to stay alive, a lot of times when that pressure gets to them, just throwing a subtle worm in there can just get you more bites. Granted, it might not get you the biggest bite every single time. You might catch a lot of small fish doing this, but if you're not fishing a tournament or you're just out there to have fun, this is a great way to do it, and you'll catch a ton of fish doing so. So we have that Icon set up. We have the Shimano Sedona with the 15-pound test braid coming down here to our 10-pound test fluorocarbon leader. And the key is to Texas rig your drop shot. So we have the VMC Finesse Nico hook on there with a robo worm. That's just a 6-inch robo worm on there. You can pick whatever color you want. I really just throw Morning Dawn and Aaron's Magic. Those are like the 2 colors I throw. And we're gonna use a lightweight so that it doesn't get hung up in the brush piles as much. We're actually gonna use a 1/4 ounce today, but you could even go down to a 3/16, and you just wanna gently worm this through the brush piles. And we'll show you how to fish this while we're out there on the water, but essentially you're just trying to find areas that these fish can live, get offshore. We're gonna fish 2 types of areas today. We're gonna fish shell bars or hard spots that are offshore. There's not really any structure around, but they just live on those hard spots and clean areas out there because that's where the bait lives. And then we're gonna focus on brush piles as well, and that's really where the heavier gear will come into play. Yes, if you hook a fish on those shell bars, they could break you off on the shells or anything, but a lot of that's clean bottom. You could fight them in with 8-pound tests, no problem. Even an open hook, you could do whatever you wanted on some of those spots. The brush piles, you can literally fish this through a brush pile and not get hung up. You can land fish right out of there. You can hook them, pull them out of the brush pile, do whatever you need to do, and get those fish in the boat. So we'll show you both of those techniques today, how to make that work, and hopefully catch some fish along the way. So let's head out on the water. We'll show you both those areas, how to fish this bait, let's get to it. So now that we talked about the gear you need for this drop shot, we're gonna go ahead and fish this thing around, see if we can catch a couple fish on it. So like I said, we got our robo worm on here. We have our 2/0 VMC finesse Nico hook here, which is actually a pretty stout hook. We have our 1/4 ounce weight to maintain bottom contact. And we have our 7.2 medium heavy spinning rod. Like I said, we're gonna be hitting these fish hard. This is not your traditional finesse style drop shot fishing. So we're gonna make long casts with this and drag it around. And then we're also going to show you how to target some brush piles later as well. So we're gonna go ahead and fish this on a shell bar right here. And then later we're gonna get to the live scope, find some big brush piles that have a lot of fish in it, and actually cast inside those brush piles and see if we can get a few bites that way. So we'll get to fishing here and see what we can catch. That's a good one.
That's good. Yeah, you figured out where they're sitting at.
Yeah. Oh, he's not that big. He's just a little baby. But you could see that fish ripped the rod out of my hand. We hit him hard. That hook goes right through their mouth, as you can see right here. That hook, you are not gonna lose them. This is not finesse drop shot fishing. That thing is getting behind their meat. That's behind his jawbone. He's not coming off. This is like a 99% land ratio. That's not a big one, but we're gonna keep fishing, see if we can get us a couple more big ones, because that was literally my first cast with this drop shot, and we're definitely gonna catch us some more here. Not a bad one to get started though, and we're gonna talk a little bit more about it. My drag was way loose on that hook set because we just got back from the St. Lawrence, but we'll get that fixed up. So you can see on this shell bar spot right here, all we're doing with our drop shot, literally making a long cast on these bluegill beds, shell bar, all kinds of stuff out here, just a hard bottom area. And I'm literally just dragging that drop shot along the bottom, almost like you would any other Texas rig worm, Carolina rig. I'm simply just covering a targeted area with this bait, but since it's a finesse profile, it's gonna get more bites than some of those other baits, whether you're throwing a big jig, a 10-inch worm, anything like that. You fish it the same way, but it'll get you more bites. Granted, some of those fish are gonna be small, but also sometimes you'll catch some very large fish doing this just because they've had so much pressure. We're out here fishing in the middle of August. John actually made a great point about it earlier. There's a tournament going on that's 70 boats out here. They've been practicing. It's the middle of August. These fish have been on the same spots for 2 months now. They've seen a lot of pressure. So a lot of times you got to do some different stuff to get some bites. And one of those things is throwing like a finesse profile like this. And while it's still finesse fishing, we're actually using a heavier spinning setup to be able to hit those fish and get them in the boat. And we got, like I said, earlier, we have 10-pound test leader. We got 15-pound test braid. We have a heavier spinning rod. We're using quite the setup here. You almost could throw this on casting gear with like 12-pound test floor carbon and do the exact same thing that we're doing. It'll just make sure you catch a lot of fish. So we'll get back to fishing, catch us a couple more. Okay. There's a good one. Hold on, that's a big one. Oh, no, he's not. But we got that fish right out of that brush pile right there. I'm actually gonna get him in the boat first. We're gonna flip him on up in here. Okay, so again, we got him hooked up, and let me pan over here and show you this brush pile real fast. So you can barely make it out there. Right there's the brush pile. You can actually see it up there on the 360. That's the brush pile. We were able to put that in there. He bit it. I'm able to set the hook on him, get him hooked past the jawbone there, make sure he stays hooked all the way to the boat, and we're able to horse him out on a spinning rod. Not as big as I thought he was gonna be, but we'll get back to fishing. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video talking about everything you need to know about fishing this drop shot. It's more than just a finesse bait. It's more than just throwing for smallmouth a 6-pound test. Try it out on your local largemouth fishery and you'll catch a ton of fish. So I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. Check out that rigging video right here. If you enjoyed the video, hit the like down below, and thanks for watching.